Every once in a while, you find a game that just makes your jaw drop. Those games that exude such beauty that you forget that you're playing a game and instead think you're glancing at a marvelous work of art. An example of this could easily be Dust and Elysian Tale, a game I bought many moons ago, but for some reason never got far in it, probably due to me getting another game that sucked my time away. I've been wanting to review this for years, and I finally sat down to play it out fully and see if there's a game behind the amazing visuals. In Dust, you play as Dust. And who is Dust? Well, he doesn't really know. He's an amnesiac who wakes up in the middle of some forest to a sword that flies right up to him. It's a magical sword that happens to know who should be wielding it, apparently. Along with this, the sword's guardian, a flying creature known as Fidget. The sword is clearly the weapon that you'll be using throughout the game, and Fidget will be your +1, the companion that gives even more color to an already colorful game. Dust sets out to figure out who he is and what's going on, and who this mysterious evil force is being powered by. Yes, everything will be answered, and about 3/4 of the way through the game, you'll learn who Dust really is, and how he came to be in a huge aha moment. I won't spoil it, because once that scene happened, I was hooked until the end. You probably won't see it coming. The game plays as what I would consider to be a loose Metroidvania, in which it's fairly linear, but some backtracking can be done as you gain abilities if you want to fully complete the game with all it has to offer. Dust moves around on a 2D plane, swiping at any enemies with his sword, leaping over holes in the ground, and the normal 2D stuff. Controls are equally as easy to learn, especially if you're using a controller. You also get to dodge around, the only real way other than parrying that you have to control any damage against you. Parrying can be tricky since you have to strike the enemy at the exact moment that they lunge at you. Doing this is only required at a small handful of situations, so don't feel bad if you don't get good at it. The evasion roll, on the other hand, should be mastered quickly, and it should take a few seconds to learn. Basically, if you're using a controller, you can use the shoulder triggers to dodge in one of two directions, evading enemy strikes. This is good, because the longer you can go without taking damage, the higher your combo meter will increase. This in turn is beneficial, because you get bonus experience points depending on how large the combo meter gets. If you can keep dealing out damage to your enemies, you'll earn XP just from killing them, but also from keeping up that streak. Combat itself is fairly easy to understand, with only 2 real attacks that are used. You will usually be using the main sword swipe, which is fast and powerful enough, and can be utilized in combo attacks. You can also use a secondary attack, in which Dust will either use his Dust Storm technique, which will throw out a large amount of hits with a small amount of damage, or perform a massive strike for heavy damage, depending on what kind of attack you were doing before hitting the secondary button. There's another option available to you, in the form of Fidget. She hints early on that she can be of assistance, and throws out what looks like a wind elemental projectile. This attack on its own isn't entirely useful, but combine this with the Dust Storm, and your combo meter will rocket upwards quickly. There are actually 3 different projectiles that Fidget will eventually unlock, and can be cycled through with a simple button press. Although you may not think that Fidget is useful at first, in the Graveyard chapter, she is required, as she is the only way to defeat one of the stronger enemy types you'll encounter here. After this, I started leveling Fidget up a bit, and found her to actually be fairly useful. Speaking of leveling up, yes, you do have a level up system, as evident by the XP gains you get from defeating enemies, completing quests, and getting that combo meter up there. When you level up, you get 1 point to put in your attack strength, defensive power, Fidget's projectile damage, or overall health. You may think that it would be wise to put all the points in 1 or 2 categories, but hold on there, Chief. You can't. Not because it would be a stupid move, but because the game won't let you. The game tries to keep things fair by forcing you to level up every category. The way this works is that all points have to be within, I think it was 4 points at the lowest leveled stat. So let's say, for example, Fidget's power is at level 2, and your max HP is at level 6. When you level up, max HP will not be an option. It's a pretty interesting way in trying to keep things fair by not allowing you to overlevel a certain stat and throwing you into a difficult situation in which you feel underleveled. You might think, well, if I'm forced to level up evenly, and you only get 2 buttons to attack, does the game get old? Not at all. In fact, far from it. The combat is fun every time you engage it, but it's also flashy as well, especially if you decide to get aerial hits in. Dust can hover in the air to perform these attacks, and if you leap into the air to chase after an enemy with a Dust Storm, he'll be flung into the air as he homes in on them. He can also grab the enemy and suplex them into the ground, smashing everything around them and scattering any dropped coins or items. Even the base attacks while having your feet on the ground look fantastic, with lots of effects and flung enemies. In fact, the only time I got a bit bored was in the final segments of the game. Without saying too much, there's a lengthy group of screens in which you're in the middle of a massive battle, and it just doesn't seem to end. Sure, it's easy experience since you have allies assisting you, but still, I would have preferred that this part be a bit shorter. There are also, of course, a bunch of side quests that are available, but it's not in what I would consider to be an overabundance of them. Rewards will typically give you a bit of lore throughout the world and the normal experience points, and that experience is a good enough reward for me. The quests also show more of the excellent humor of the game. There's a quest in which you have to herd up missing sheep underground, and when Dust picks one up and puts it in his inventory sack, Fidget gets the remark on it. Speaking of, Fidget is one of the best sidekicks I've ever seen in a game. She never gets annoying, she's useful in combat, and it's not a stupid escort mission. Plus, her insight on many of the goings-on in the gaming world had me laugh. Her commentary is refreshing and it never gets old. Okay, we need to talk about the graphics. Are they amazing or what? It's the first thing I remember from the game, and it can easily be one of the centerpieces of that age-old discussion, are games considered art? Every scene was, according to the Steam page, hand-painted, and it shows. Animations are fluid and smooth, worlds are beautiful, and the level of detail shown is exquisite. Ever used that word before? Probably not, but it's true. There wasn't a single area of the game where I saw the visuals and just thought, eh. There are a few cutscenes available to show off the graphics a bit more, and the best way I can talk about them is to say that they remind me of an earlier late 90s cartoon that you'd watch on the Saturday morning. I kind of wish there were more of them, but they were a treat when one started to play. So is there anything negative about the game? Well, other than the final length of the game feeling a bit drawn out, not really. I did encounter one glitch in the snowfield where I fell through the moving platform while I was even with the ground, getting me to fall to the top of the ceiling of the prior room. Unfortunately, it forced me to reload a previous save, as there wasn't a way I could see to get escape, but it was the only time I ever had a problem with the game's stability. It should be pretty obvious, but I would fully encourage you to play Dust and Elysian Tale if you're even remotely interested in 2D action platformers. If the art alone doesn't intrigue you, the gameplay is definitely solid enough to keep you playing to see what happens next plot-wise. If you're not a fan of 2D platformers, well, you should still check it out, as it's just a fantastic game. I would love to play more like it, so if you have any suggestions, do me a favor and send them my way, would you? Final score? 7 out of 7. This is Reaper. Happy fragging.